Hello everyone, Richard here again. In a previous video I showed you how to turn a TP-Link router, a stock TP-Link router, into a dedicated VPN router. In this video what I'm going to do, and I'll put a card up for that up here in the corner for you, but in this video what I'm going to do is show you how to turn a Netgear router into a dedicated VPN router. This is the WNR 2000 version 3, but it's running the Netgear Genie software or firmware, which most Netgear routers are running, which is totally different from the TP-Link router's firmware. So I'm going to show you how to turn this thing from a stock router into a dedicated VPN router. I may get this question on this video quite a bit. Why do I want VPN, and what is VPN anyways? All right, so let's go through a quick introduction to how the internet connects you to all these wonderful things out there in the world. Here we have me. I'm the person standing here, and I'm at home with the connection to the internet. I have an IP address. This is the IP address. Let's say, theoretically, that's my IP address, okay? And the IP address is like your phone number. It basically tells the internet where you are and how to send data. When they send data to you, like say you go to CNN or let's say Amazon and you ask for something like, I don't know, a cat photo. Well, they need to know where to send that, and they send it to your IP address, okay? So the IP address is like your identifier on the internet. And when you connect to something called a internet service provider, and that could be like Time Warner or Sprint or whoever you have. So you connect through your internet service provider, and then they connect you to the internet, and then the internet connects you to whatever you want. Okay, this is basic connectivity to the internet. The problem with this is this, and I'll show you what happens. Is that everything that you do from this IP address, going through this internet service provider, Time Warner, whoever, and then out into the internet is traceable. In other words, if you go to I don't know, FBI.com, then basically your internet service provider can track that you've done that. And say you search for that on Google. Well, Google can track you and say, oh well, Richard whoever is at IP address 7045182216 just looked for FBI. Put that in the database. And then they start tracking you, right? And then when you go from Google to, say, Amazon, Amazon goes, oh, well, that person came from Google, and they came from this internet service provider in Texas, and this is their IP address. And they track all this stuff, and eventually they have a huge database about the sort of stuff that you like to do on the internet, and then they target your advertising to you. Then when you've wondered how that advertising is so well targeted, well, this is a portion of it, okay? There's more to it than that, but this is basically saying the internet service provider is tracking every single thing you're looking at on the internet in a log file, okay? And they can see it. They can say, oh, he searched for this, he searched for that, he went here, he went there. They can see all of it, and they track it. So, and if the government shows up and says, hey, show me everything that, Richard's gone and looked at in the last 2 years. They go, okay, there you go. They have it. Okay, so there is no expectation of privacy in what you're doing on the internet at all. Zero. Okay, zero. Like, don't think you're doing anything privately on the internet. Zero. Short of, let's say, going to your bank. But even then, they know what bank you're going to. They don't know what you're doing in your bank because that's an encrypted connection. But they know that let's say your bank is Bank of Montreal. They know that your bank is that bank because you have asked to go there to log in. So nothing in this communication chain here between you and the internet is private. Zero. Okay. So let's go next. Here's the other thing. Let's say you take your laptop and you're sitting down at your local coffee shop on the Wi-Fi, and you're logging in and you're typing away, blah, blah, blah. Well, the same situation happens again. You have to log into the coffee shop Wi-Fi, and then from there you go to a service provider, and then from there you go out into the internet. Well, there's one more step here. Anybody in this coffee shop Wi-Fi network can actually snoop at what you're doing. They can look at what you're doing. They can actually try and break into your laptop, and if you're sharing files and data to the internet from your laptop, anybody in this coffee shop Wi-Fi can look at it too. So There's no security there at all, okay? So this is where VPN comes in. And the whole reason why I have VPN is because when I travel and I connect to a hotel Wi-Fi or a coffee shop Wi-Fi or an airport Wi-Fi, I don't want to expose myself to that kind of data breach. So this is what I do. This is what VPN does. All right. What VPN does is it establishes a secure encrypted connection between you and the internet. Okay, so this green arrow is the secure connected VPN connection, and it connects through the Wi-Fi at the coffee shop, connects through the internet service provider, and then connects to your private internet access or VPN service, which is who I use, PIA. It's what it's called, private internet access, and basically what happens here is it creates an encrypted tunnel. So nobody in the coffee shop, nobody in the internet service provider, nobody until after you go through your VPN service can see where you're at, can look at and say, oh, this guy's in Texas and he's surfing with Time Warner, and no, none of that happens. What happens is you get a private connection all the way to this point. And this point is the VPN service provider. And the VPN service provider promises that A, they don't log your IP address, B, they won't give that information out to anybody, and C, they don't let any data go past this point. So basically what happens is once you go out from the VPN service to the internet and they try and trace it back, they trace it back to the VPN service, and that's as far as it goes. It's like, hey, that person surfing from the private internet access in, let's say, Virginia. That's what, I think this is what, I think this is Washington. Anyway, doesn't matter. It basically stops there and doesn't go back to you. So that makes you a private, that gives you privacy and makes you private. In other words, these guys can't trace you back anymore, right? Now, it's not 100% because there's vulnerabilities and so on and so forth. But that's what VPN does. It secures your privacy and your data connection to the internet against people who could use it in nefarious ways. Okay, that's why I like it. That's why I use it. And what we're going to do today, and okay, just to back this up a little bit, on my laptop I have a little client, a little connection piece of software that connects me to the VPN service from wherever I am. So I connect to Wi-Fi, then I open up my client and I connect to VPN, and I disappear from those networks altogether because I'm encrypted all the way to the VPN service provider, okay? But what I'm going to do here is show you how to create that connection in a router all by itself. So anything that connects to that router will be automatically connected to the VPN service and surfing privately through the internet. That's the whole point of having a dedicated VPN router. Now, what you can do with that router is plug it into your current network, and then anybody that logs into that will be protected from any snooping, or they'll have privacy and a lot more security. That's why I'm showing you how to do this. Okay, so I'll show you how to do this on a standard router in a simple way. Well, not a simple way, but I'll walk you through all the steps and why I'm doing it and how it works. And the whole point will be to have a 24/7 connected router to your VPN service. There's a lot of pluses to this. Number one, like for instance, private internet access only allows 5 connections, right? And by the way, this is not a free service. This private VPN service costs money. I pay like $3.30 a month to have the service. More than happy to pay that money to have the service because it gives me a great deal of security and peace of mind when I'm traveling and even when I'm at home. But I do have a dedicated VPN router. It is my Wi-Fi router, which makes it even more secure for me. And it allows me to, browse the internet privately, which I like. Now, basically, it is a paid-for service. I use private internet access. That's who they're called. They're one of the big. I think they're the biggest VPN service out there. But you do your own research on that. So that's what VPN is. That's how it works. And that's what we're going to do in this video. All right, I want to reiterate this for everybody who's watching this video because it's very important. None of this will work without this one thing. You need a VPN account, okay? Now, I use private internet access, and you can see it here on the screen. And it's a paid-for account. It's very cheap. Like, for me, I'm using the service that costs $3.33 a month. You can go for whatever you want. Here's the pricing. This is the web page, and you can see up here, it tells me my IP address, my ISP, and that I'm protected by PIA. So basically, this is really not my IP address. This is really not my ISP, but I'm currently connected to VPN through my VPN router here, right? So, and you see that it's DDWRT. Again, it doesn't have to be the third-party firmware that I'm using. You can use whatever you'd like. Actually, you can use the stock firmware in your router, and that's what I'm going to show you how to do. I may do a further video on putting that third-party DDWRT firmware in your router and using that instead. But right now, we're sticking with the stock stuff. So just a plain off-the-shelf router, how to configure that to be a dedicated VPN router. But once again, you need a paid-for VPN service. Now, you can go with private internet access, or you can go with several others. I just find that these guys are the best. So that's who I went with. And if you look at the bottom, you see all the VPN features you get, right? But the key feature you're going to get from them is an account. You need the username for that account, and you need the password for that account in order to configure this router to do what it's going to do, okay? So let's move on to that. Before we start configuring the router, we need to find out a little bit about your network. And this is why. Because we need to know where your current router is at. In other words, the one that we're going to connect this router to, we need to know what its IP address is so that we can set up this the VPN router that we're going to connect to it on a different network. We're going to have two separate networks. We're going to have your home network, which is what you currently have right now. Then we're going to have your VPN router network, which is going to be connected through your home network, but not part of your home network. Now, the reason for that is, number one, privacy, right? It's going to be a separate network for VPN traffic only, number one. Number two, when you're on this, if you made both routers part of the same network, what would happen is if the VPN connection to the VPN router dropped, then you wouldn't know it. It would just keep you, it would just take the traffic and go, okay, well, we're not going through VPN anymore. We'll just go through your home network. And you would be connected to a VPN router thinking that you're on VPN and you're not. Okay, so what I'm going to do is set up the VPN router as a separate network that goes through your home network. That way, when you connect to the VPN router, you know you're connected to VPN. And if that connection drops for any reason whatsoever, and you're connected to the VPN router, you will no longer surf. And you'll know when that happens that, oh, I must have lost my VPN connection for some reason. Okay? So, and then you troubleshoot that. But basically, what I wanted to do is isolate the VPN network by itself so that, A, you get that privacy and security, number one. Number two, if it ever drops, you'll know because it will no longer connect you to the internet. So let's go get the information about your home network right now so that we can set the secondary VPN router, dedicated VPN router to a different IP address, okay? And I will put links for this stuff in the video description below for, you know, the hardware and so on, and also the configuration that I use to make this happen, because there's a bunch of numbers and stuff that you need to remember. I'll put it all in the video description below. Also, if you wish to leave me a comment, a question, or, you know, even a suggestion, again, put them in the comment section below the video. All right, so let's go get the information we need. So over here, you see my network icon. I'm going to right click it. Now, I'm hardwired. You may be Wi-Fi connected. It doesn't matter. Just right click it, choose Open Network and Internet Settings. Scroll down to Network and Sharing Center. Click on that. Then click on Change Adapter Settings over here. This brings you to the Network Connections page where you see all your network connections. You may be connected through Wi-Fi, you may be connected through Ethernet, or you may be connected through both. But really, what we're looking for is whatever connection you're connected to your main network to. So in my case, it's Wi-Fi. If you're Ethernet, just do the same thing on the Ethernet adapter. Right-click it, choose status. Okay, and then under here, go to details, click on details. And what we're looking for here is right there, the IPv4 default gateway. Now, the default gateway is generally your the IP address of your router. So in this case, it's 192.168.1.1. If you want to verify that, just open up a browser window and put that number into the address bar. And you see my login for that router. So don't need to log into it, just find out whether it's there or not. And now I know that my router is on 192.168.1.1. I've written that down already, home router IP address. You should do the same, if not a piece of paper or notepad or whatever. And the primary reason we need to know that is because in this configuration, I want to set the VPN, the dedicated VPN router outside of the primary network. In other words, I want to set it on a separate network number so that the two networks don't see each other. I don't want people from the 192.168.1.1 network to be able to browse my VPN router or anything on it. Of course, if you're connected to VPN, that would be next to impossible anyway, but regardless, I'll tell you why in a second. And vice versa. I don't want, when you're on the VPN router, I don't want you to be able to see anything on the primary network. The two have to be separate. We're talking about privacy here. We don't share when you're being private. So reason I want them separate, another reason is this. If you have both routers on the same network and you connect to VPN, and for some reason the VPN client or the VPN router drops the connection to your VPN service provider. Maybe you didn't pay the bill that month and they knocked you off. Well, guess what? You're going to connect to your VPN router and you're going to think you're surfing the internet privately when you're not. Because whether it's connected or not, it's on the same network as your primary router, and it would just route you through the primary router. And you'd be thinking, oh, I'm on VPN, I'm all secure, I'm all private here. And you wouldn't be. In this case, the way I'm setting it up, if the VPN router drops, then you won't, and you connect to the VPN router, you won't be able to surf anymore because the connection to the VPN router and the internet will be severed by that disconnection, and there won't be any way to route around that because it's on its own network. I can get into all the technicalities, but basically set them both on separate networks so that that never happens to you. And then you can be assured that if you're browsing the internet and connecting to your VPN router, you're on VPN, okay? Otherwise, you can troubleshoot it. So bottom line here is that the network name, the network ID or number is the first three digits on this network. 192.168.1.1 is the network ID. The client IDs would be everything afterwards. And the 1, the 2, the 3, the 4, all the way to 254. Those are client IDs. So here on the secondary router or the VPN router, you could set it to anything other than 1. So here you could actually go to 0. Or you could go to 2. I'm going to go to 2 because it makes sense, 1, 2, right? And then the IP address for the router can be anything you want it, but I'm just going to set it to 1 because it's number 1, right? It's the primary VPN router. So I'm going to set it to 192.168.2.1. But that is only if my primary router address is this, okay? So if your primary router was, let's say 0.1, which is very possible, okay? Then, and your VPN router or your router that we're going to use for the dedicated VPN was already set to 1.1, you'd be fine because it's on a separate network. But if it was set to 0, then you wouldn't be fine. You'd have to change it again. So again, this is like higher level of networking stuff, but basically just make sure that the third number does not correspond to the third, the third number on the VPN router IP address does not equal the third number on your main router. All right, so here, if this was 1, which I know it is, and this will be 2, okay? So we'll go from here. I'm going to physically connect the router, show you how to do that. Then we're going to disconnect from the Wi-Fi router, and then we'll configure everything else from there. There's one piece of information more we need to get before we start configuring the router, and that is the PIA, or Private Internet Access VPN server number that you want to use. So I'll show you how to go get that. Just click on, well, open up your browser. Then we're going to do a search for PIA. Now, if you're using somebody else than PIA, I don't know how you're going to go get that IP address. But if you're using private internet access, this is how you're going to do. So just Google search PIA to get to their web page. Private Internet Access Anonymous VPN. There we go. And here we're going to go to the network name, or network tab up here. And you can see that there's a bunch of countries. They say 33 countries to choose from, 53 locations, 3,279 VPN and proxy servers. So you're going to choose what you want. So if you're living in Canada, or you want to look like you're surfing from Canada, choose a server in Canada, New Zealand, Germany, wherever you want. Basically, whatever location you choose, and what the server that you choose from that location is what you're going to look like you're surfing from. So in other words, when you connect to the internet, if you use a German server, it'll look like you're browsing from an IP address based in Germany. Of course, it's going to be at PIA, but it's still going to be based in Germany. So if you have a location specific problem, you can change location by changing servers. The other thing about this too is that if you want to pick and choose through the servers, some are faster than others, some are used more than others. So you can, investigate which one's going to work best for you. So I'm in the United States, so I'm just going to pick US. And I'm going to choose US, Washington, D.C. Primary reason is it's not where I live. I live in Texas. So this is just to show you that once we set it up, you are truly surfing outside of your zone. And I will show you that. So let's go on that. And you click on it and you have, all these options like, test it for speed and so on. I'm not going to do that. All I need here is the actual domain name for the server. They unfortunately don't put the IP address in here. They put what they call the FQDN, which is a fully qualified domain name. But we need the IP address. I know that people, may say that you don't, but you do. So we're going to right-click it, hit copy. So highlight this address, like US, Washington, Private Internet Access. Right? Just highlight it, copy it. Then we're going to go down here to search and just type in CMD, which is command. We're going to go to the command line. And after we've got the command line up, here we're going to type in PING, or ping, and then just right-click, and it should put your US Washington DC Private Internet Access.com address in here, and just hit return here. So hit your enter key, and you get a ping reply from that server. But more than that, you'll get the address of the server right here. So highlight the server, copy it, and then back to your notepad or wherever if you're writing it on paper, it doesn't matter. Note this IP address. And I already have done that here, a DC VPN server, and it's 70. Again, all you got to do is right click here and hit paste, and it'll put that number in there. It's 70.32.0.132. Now you can use this server if you wish, or you can go hunting for a better one or whatever it is you want, whichever server you want to use. But basically, this number is the IP address that your dedicated VPN router will be connecting to every time. So, and you can change that anytime you want to. It's not set in stone. Your username and your password from PIA will work on any of the servers. So you can pick any of them that you want. So this is the one I'm picking, and I'm showing you how to get it, the IP address, because you need the IP address. And from here on, we can go to connecting the router. And then after we're done connecting the router, I'll show you how to configure it. So here we have our Netgear router. And what we're going to do is connect to the orange or LAN ports on it using a patch cable. Usually they come with one, so I'm just going to use what is there. If you don't have one of these, there should be one from your main router to the modem. You could temporarily just disconnect that and use that. But regardless, don't forget to put it back when you're done. Again, we're going to use this patch cable here on any one of the LAN ports. Those are the orange ports, not the yellow port. That's the internet port or the WAN port. And once we got it connected there, we're going to connect it to the laptop in its Ethernet port, which is right on the side, right there. And after that, we're going to power up the router using the button on the back, power button on the back, standard stuff. And then we're going to connect to it using the laptop, and I'll show you what we're looking for after that. All right, we've got the router powered up, connected to the computer or to your laptop, hardwired. Let's continue the configuration here. So go down to your network icon over here, and of course we've got the PIA server number too. Right-click this, the network icon, choose Open and Network Internet Settings. All right, then from here, we're going to go down to Network and Sharing Center, and then change adapter settings. And you can see that the Ethernet is connected, and my Wi-Fi is connected, but we don't want that. At this point, we want to disconnect from the other network altogether. So we're going to turn or disable, or actually turn off the Wi-Fi by going down here and just hitting the blue button. There we go. Disconnects Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi is off. Don't forget, when we're all done, to come turn this back on, but I will show you how to connect to this router through Wi-Fi as well. So we'll have to turn it on for that. So don't worry about it. So here we're going to go and right-click the Ethernet adapter. And the reason we're doing this is to find out what IP address this Netgear router, the VPN dedicated router that we're going to create, is at right now from a factory default. And I'll show you how to do the factory default as well. So let's go here to Status, and then Details. And from the IPv4 for default gateway, you can see that it is also on 192.168.1.1, which creates what would be called a IP conflict on your network. If you were to plug this into your network right now, it would conflict with your primary router, and either one of them wouldn't work or both of them wouldn't work. It's, you know, you can't have the same IP address on two devices on the same network. Just wrecks everything. So we're going to have to change this IP address from 1.1 to something else. So that's another reason why we're disconnected from the Wi-Fi, because by doing that, there's no way that the two devices can actually conflict with anything, because it's just connected to this Netgear router that we're going to configure. So we're going to close this all off here for now. We're going to open up the browser window, and yeah, I'm still here. So I'm just going to open up the browser window. We're going to type in 192.168.1.1 and then hit return. And then we end up in the Netgear Genie window. And this is because I just reset this router, okay? So I'm going to say, no, I want to configure the internet connection myself to this question, and hit next. Now, okay. And by the way, if your router has not been reset to the factory defaults, you would get a login page with a username and password. So I'm going to show you that. Okay, and here I'm just going to log back in again by putting the IP address back in. And if your router is set to the default username and password for Netgear, well, I guess it's rebooting right now. Thank you. Let me go there. There we go. If it's set to the default username and password, then you can use this default name and password, because I just reset this router to the factory defaults. And by default, Netgear routers use admin as the username and password, all lowercase, as the password. Now, this is the most insecure thing on the planet, and we're going to change it right away. But right now, I just want to show you from scratch how to reset the router, how to save the configuration, all these other things before we fix this, okay? So here, admin, password, I'm going in. If you don't know yours, find out from whoever put it in there what it is, or try admin and password and see if that works for you. And if it works for you, change it, okay? And I'm going to show you how to do that in a sec. All right, so we're into the router here. We're not connected to the internet. That's no surprise, because it's not attached to anything. So here we're going to go to Advanced. And then we're going to go to administration. Now, under administration, you'll see backup settings and all these settings. I'm going to go to backup settings here because that's where the revert to factory default setting is, right here. And you would click on erase. But before I do that, I want to show you something here. You've got the option here to back up a configuration or restore a configuration. So if you wish to back up your current configuration of your router for whatever reason, maybe you're just playing around and trying this out and you want to return your router back to its previous settings, then certainly you can do that. So here you can click on the backup button and it will send you a file to save called Netgear WNR 2000 version 3 CFG. Depends on which Netgear router you have, but it will send you a file. You save the file, and that's your configuration file. So then you just say, okay, save it. I'm not going to go through the process. You save it, and then you do whatever you want to the router. When you're done, if you don't like it, you can come back here, browse where you saved that file, hit restore, and it will return the router back to its previous configuration. So here, I'm not going to do that, but that's how you do it. Okay, so it's a nice thing to know how to do, especially after you set up the router as a dedicated VPN router. Then you can save that configuration and have it forever. And if the router, for whatever reason, ever gets messed up, you can always restore that configuration and return the router back to the day that you set up the VPN, and then it'll work just like the day, well, it should work just like the day that you set up the VPN. So here we're going to click erase, and this is going to change the router back to its factory settings. We want to start with a fresh router as it came out of the box, and that's what this does to the configuration. It turns it back to the settings that the factory originally put into the router. So here I'm going to hit erase. Sure, you want to do this, of course. It's always going to ask you that. It's going to erase everything and set it back to factory. So we're going to do that, and then it's going to do the settings. Okay, and then after this happens, you'll probably come back to a wizard page. We'll see what happens here. I'm going to hit log out. Actually, no. We'll see what happens. I'll let this reboot, and I'll pick it up when it updates. All right, that took 2 or 3 minutes. And here we're into where I thought we'd end up. It's saying, Network Genie, configure your internet connection. This is what would happen if you turned the router on after you took it out of the box. It basically wants to get you through an easy, quick internet setup. So we don't want to do that. So we're going to say no here, right? And if you had a previously stored version or configurations for this router, like let's say the VPN settings after we configured them, you could choose to have do that by choosing the third option, but we're not going to do that. We're just going to go next here on the no, I want to configure the internet connection myself. Next. Okay. Again, if you logged out here and logged back in, because it's a factory default, you would be looking at the admin username and password, all lowercase, as the password. That is first thing we're going to change. Okay. So let's go do that. I'm sure there's easier ways to do this, but I'm just going to go to the Advanced tab, Security, and Administration. And in here it should be Set Password. There it is. So we already know what the old password is, and it's password, right? So let's put it in there. When you reset the router, and there is a factory reset button on the back of the router, I believe, as well, but this is the way I do it. So here we're going to hit password again. So, oops, I don't want to set it to password. I want to set, and it gives you that connection is not secure thing, but I'm going to set it to what I want for this router. And notice that it doesn't give you the option to change the username. So all you do is get to change the password. So let's do that and apply. If you do not enable password, blah, 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 well, I'm not worried about that. You can use the password recovery option if you wish. I'll remember it. Let me log out, see if that worked. So, back to 192. Different companies work that program a different way. So, My favorites are the TP links at this point, but oh yeah, the router's rebooting. Great. Let's try that again. 192.168.1.1. There we go. And admin is the username, and whatever the password you set, put it in. And that verifies that you've done it right. If not, you're going to have to hard reset the router. Google that. You'll know how to do it. All right, so we're back in here. And we're going to go back to advanced again. And we're going to look at all our information here, okay? Well, number one, we know that the router, and it tells us here in the router information that it's on 1.1. Well, we certainly can't have it in my network on that router. If yours is okay on 1.1, then leave it. But mine is conflicting with my home address. So if yours was, if your home router IP was 0, you just leave this one on 1.1, no problem. But mine is not. So I'm going to change the IP address on this router to 2, as I said, to the network 2. So here we're going to go to, I believe it'll be under administration. No, maybe not. Setup. There we go. Internet setup. We're going to go there, or actually LAN setup, sorry. All right, so here it gives you all the information that you need to change. And here's the IP address of the router. And it's on 1.1. We're going to change it to 2.1 and then hit apply. Okay. And when you do that, I'm not sure whether the router is going to redirect you back to where you should be, but you just changed the IP address of the router you're working on. So right at this moment, the router is no longer at 192.168.1.1 like you see on the top of the page here. It's on 2.1. So we'll see what happens here. And you can see my little icon here is, well, actually not doing much. It's got no internet access. We know that. So I'll wait here. All right, another minute or two wait again. And now it's already saying 192.168.2.1 is requesting your username and password. So it's changed the IP address and it's asking me for a username and password. And it's going to be admin again and whatever password you programmed in. So step one, we've got the router now, and I've got it logged here. 192.168.2.1 is the VPN router IP address, which is what we just did. So if you look up here on the address bar, you see that it says 2.1. So back to advanced again. And under the advanced tab, you have all this information. But where we want to go to here is setup. And then we're going to go to internet setup. And this is the WAN page basically, or well, not the WAN page, but the internet setup page. Here we're going to go and change this. It asks you the question, does your internet connection require a logon? Yes, it does, because we're going to be doing a VPN connection. So we'll say yes here. The next thing you need to change is this from PPPoE to L2TP. There's PPTP there, which is point-to-point tunneling protocol, which is another VPN protocol, but it doesn't work on PIA because you can't configure it correctly. But L2TP works just fine. That's layer 2 tunneling protocol, so choose that. And now you got to put in your login and password information. So let's do that. Hopefully you have your login and password information for PIA. You're going to need it. Let's go over here. I've got my information here. It's all bogus, but I'm just showing you the format. The VPN user name for PIA is an X, a lowercase letter X, and a 7-digit number afterwards. So whatever yours is, copy that in, right? So I'm going to do a bogus one here. I'll put mine in afterwards. I don't want to show that on the internet because it won't block it here for me, unfortunately. So let's go here. And then the password is 10 characters with digits, and they're mixed, and they're all case sensitive. So if you have a lowercase s, a uppercase J and H, and a lowercase D and K, that's significant. Make sure you paste it exactly as it looks or type it in exactly as it looks. So I'm just going to copy it and paste it in, and just for the heck of it. Again, that's a bogus password. That's a 10-digit character, code anyway. So after that, you go down here to dial on demand. You choose what you want. You can choose manual collect, dial on demand. I just choose always on. This is a dedicated VPN server. It should be always connected. So I'm going to choose always on. Okay. Now we get into the next level, and the next level is my IP address. Okay. Well, this is a little wonky here, but basically you have to choose an IP address that is on your primary network. So that would be a 192, in my case, 192.168.1. something, right? If you know what your DHCP server range, I know this is kind of techie is, but if you know what your DHCP server range is, then you can pick an IP address outside of that. Otherwise, just guess one. Probably a higher number would be better. I'm just going to choose like, I don't know, 245. Okay? You choose what you'd like, but more than likely you're not going to conflict at the higher end, but you never know. So if you get an IP conflict error of some type, change this number up here. This number needs to be on your primary network range. So 192.168.1 for me, whatever yours is for you. And that is the same IP address that you logged up here, right here under your home router IP address. Okay? So we've got that. Next, it says IP Subnet Mask. It's always the same. Well, not always, but we're just going to put in what you should put in here, which is 255.255.255.0. And then you've got an IP address. This is where your PIA network IP address goes. So whatever server you picked and got the IP address of, in my case, it was Washington, D.C. We're going to go get that right here. And I've got it written down right there. So I'm just going to copy it and paste it right into this space, and deleting that number. That number needs to go. There we go. And then the gateway IP address, again, this has to be an IP address that is on your primary network. So that it's going to be the same gateway IP address of your primary router, which is 192.168, in my case, .1.1. Whatever you found when you first looked at it, that's what you should be using. Usually it's the same IP address as your primary router anyway. So it's 192.168.1.1 for me. At this point, everything else, well, yeah, there is one more setting. And the one more setting is important. It's right here. Domain name server address. This needs to be set to something that is private. Okay? A lot of people would leave this alone and just leave it alone. Well, then it's going to be assigned whatever it is. I use a domain name server company called DNS Watch. There are others. You choose what you want. I'm going to give you the IP addresses for DNS Watch. Go to just Google DNS Watch and you'll find out why I use it. Because number one, the DNS can track you as well as anything else can. So by having a private or a anonymous DNS server, then you will have a lot more security and a lot more privacy on the internet. So set these numbers to, I would say, DNS Watch servers at this point. You choose what you want past that point, but if you want to see that, just go to just Google DNS Watch and they'll tell you all about what they do. I actually bring that up. I don't know if I can bring it up right at this point. But these are the numbers I use, and I recommend strongly that you use these numbers. So let's go. DNS Watch, and that, of course, I'm in the middle of it. All right, so let me find those. So they are. DNS Watch, 84, 200, 69, 80. Those are the numbers, okay? And then 84, 200, 70, 40. So let's do that. 84, 200. Oops. That doesn't work. Let's try that again. 84, 200, 69, and 40. And for the second one's 84, 200, 70, 80. And let's verify that I remember that correctly. And I did. Perfect. No, I didn't. I messed up on the last two digits. So this is 80 and this is 40. Again, I'll post the stuff in the video description below so you don't have to guess like I just did. There we go. And see how important it is. That would have been backwards. It wouldn't have worked. So there we go. Now I'm going to do is save all these by hitting apply. And then it's saying requesting your password. All right, let's put that in there. I will do that. Hopefully you remembered what you put in there. Okay. And now it's updating my settings. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to put in my information because it doesn't blank out my username. And I need to show you how it works on that page. So I'm going to put this video screen over my username so you don't see my username. I don't want that showing out to the internet. So, let this boot up, go through. And once that happens, what we're going to do is connect the router to the dedicated VPN router to our main router. And I'll come back and test this connection. We've got the Netgear router configured, ready to be connected to the internet. I've got it still connected to the laptop here in the port, and I'm going to leave that connection to the LAN port on the Netgear for now, because after we connect it from this internet port to the primary router, we still got to configure the wireless, and that can't be done without being hardwired to the Netgear router. So what we'll do is we'll connect this right now. So we'll take a patch cable, another one, from the internet cable, and I'll put links to all the hardware and stuff in the video description below. But I'm going to put a patch cable in from the internet port on the Netgear, and that's going to go into the back of my primary router's LAN ports, okay? So we're going to go here. There we go, into the LAN port. So we've got a cable coming from the laptop to the LAN ports on the dedicated VPN router, the Netgear router, and from the WAN port or internet port on the Netgear router to the LAN port, one of the orange ports or Ethernet ports on the primary router, okay? So from internet to LAN, that's what we have. And now this router should be able to connect to the internet and on VPN if it's configured correctly, and I'll show you that next. We've got the router physically connected to our computer now, no problem, and to the main router. So we got the VPN router connected to the main router. We should be able to connect to the internet now and check all that out. So first off, let's go and see how we're doing here. Let's try and log into that router again, 192.168.2.1 for the web page to log in, and of course our credentials to get in here. And we'll go to the default home page, and we should be connected, no problem. Let's see what happened. There you go. Internet status good. Everything else is cool. Let's go we could go into advanced here, and it gives you more information. But here it says a check mark, which is good. It means you're connected to the internet. MAC address, it gives us an IP address that's a private IP address. That means this is the IP address that private internet access has given us. We're connected to L2TP and Subnet Mask, and of course our DNS watch servers, which were here, the 84, 269, and 7040 that we set as part of our settings under here, the internet port. You can see them here, okay? And of course the account information is covered up by my video, that's why it's here. And everything else still set the same way. So we're ready to test this out. Let's go test to see if we've got any issues. ExpressVPN has some nice tests for this. So if you go to their webpage and go to products and then say, what's my IP? It'll go and try and sense where you are. And you can see here that it's saying that I'm in Ashburn. I'm in Texas. Ashburn's in Washington, D.C., or just outside of Washington, D.C. Okay, as you can see here. And it says my IP address is 7032.0132, which you may recognize as the number for the DC VPN server that we put in for PIA. Perfect. So we're being covered. PIA is actually not exposing our IP address. They're exposing theirs. Who cares, right? So yes, the VPN router is protecting us currently. So let's go see what else they got for a test. DNS leak. Let's go there. And it says, ooh, DNS request exposed. Well, it's exposed 84.270.40. Well, that is the IP address we hard-coded into the router as a private or a privacy DNS. That's DNS watch. That's these guys over here with these two numbers, 84.269.80 and 70.40, as you see there. And we got 70.40 here. And in our settings, you'll see that that's the first IP address for the DNS. So, bam, we're still protected. Perfect. And then we have WebRTC leak, which is a browser issue leak. We're not really going to get too crazy about what that exactly is, but it's another potential VPN leak. And it says here, local. Well, no leak there because it's a local IP address. That IP address cannot exist on the internet, cannot be hacked. So that's our local IP address that my machine currently has. So then we have the public IPv4 IP address, which is 70.32.0.132. Once again, the Washington, D.C. PIA server, right? Perfect. We're covered. It's working exactly as it should be. So DNS watch, these are the privacy free DNS servers. You can use them without any fee whatsoever. And I'll show you how to use these in a second without even being on VPN, which I strongly suggest you should do, right? Because, why not have a DNS setting when you're not on VPN that's actually protecting your privacy anyway? Why not have it? You don't need it just on VPN. It's nice to have on VPN, but you can have it all the time by hard coding these numbers into your network connections. And I'll show you how to do that in a second. One more test here. We've got private internet access, the people who are actually giving me VPN, and they say the same thing to me. If you look up here, your IP address is 70.32.0.132. Your ISP is PIA. It is because we're going through PIA for VPN, and and it says you are protected. Perfect, right? So, mission accomplished on the private VPN router, set up on the Netgear. So that it's set right. So let's go set the final couple stages. We're going to do Wi-Fi, and then I'm going to show you how to hard code your DNS into your network adapters so that they're always on the privacy protected DNS servers. Okay, so let's go here. Of course, here we're going to go to Wi-Fi. See where it's under basic. I guess I could have gone to wireless setup. Anyways, let's go to wireless. And we know we turned the wireless off, so here we are under the wireless settings. You set your SSID to whatever you want. You could call it VPN. Let's call it VPN router. I'm going to leave the passphrase the same, and of course I'm going to change it later on. Everything else I'm leaving with defaults. I strongly suggest you use WPA 2. It's the most secure of the Wi-Fi security options. Never use WEP. Never ever use WEP. Never. WEP, do not use. Okay, it's not secure. So here we're going to hit apply. One more thing here, you'll see that it's broadcasting what they call the SSID, which is the name we just gave it. So you want that because it makes it much easier to set up your wireless connections. Okay, so we're going to go back down here and turn on Wi-Fi. So remember we turned it off. We'll turn it back on. And when this comes back up here in a second, we will connect to it. In the meantime, let's just right-click the Open and Network Internet Settings. And then go down to Network and Sharing Center. And then over here to change adapter settings. Now, I'm going to unplug my Ethernet cable here. Like that. And now we're not connected to that router anymore, but it doesn't matter. I want you to right-click that connection, go to Properties, and then go to Internet Protocol version 4, TCP/IP version 4. Now, do this whether you have VPN or not. Do it anyway, okay? I suggest you do anyways. Strongly suggest. So we'll double click on that, and you'll see that I changed this from obtain DNS server address automatically to use the following DNS server address. That's already ahead of this shooting. But what we're going to put here is going to put 84, 200, 70, 40, and 6980 in here. Okay, so 84. Okay, 70 and 40. And under here, we're going to put 84, 200, 69, 80. I don't know if you can hear that helicopter, but it's flying right over my head. There we go. Okay, so let's click that in there. And again, those are the static DNS IP addresses for DNS Watch, okay? Hit OK. And OK. And I already did that for the Wi-Fi connection, I believe. Let's take a look. So right-click the connection, TCP/IP version 4, put those two numbers in there. And the nice thing about this is that this stays like this, connected to those DNS servers all the time, whether you're on VPN or not. So if you're not on VPN and you're watching this video, set this setting anyway, okay? Why use an IP address for a DNS server that is less than friendly? These guys are great. So I hit OK, OK, and we'll just minimize this stuff out of the way for now. We should be back. Okay, well, unable because we disconnected. But now we're going to connect back to VPN. Here's our VPN connection, VPN router. Hit connect. And it should ask us. Okay, I know why not. I've connected to this previously with a different password, so close it. Forget it. All right. And let's connect to it again. All right. Yeah, there we go. So let's put that password in there. Next. That should connect us back to the VPN router through Wi-Fi only. See, connected, secured, perfect. We'll go back here and yeah, okay. Just say yes to this because we connected from two different network cards. So and log back in. We're back in. So right now we're connected through Wi-Fi to that VPN router, and we're protected by that VPN router again. So again, status is good. Everything's cool. We go back up here, do the same tests. We'll get the same results. So let's hear what's my IP. Ashburn again. 132, the 70.32.0.132 number. DNS leak. Same. That's DNS Watch's IP address, not ours. Perfect. And WebRTC. Same result. All right. Different IP address, but same public IP address, PIAs. Perfect. And this, the DNS Watch again, people were using. Refresh PIA's page. And nothing should change here. Yep, exactly the same. So now we're connected to the VPN router through Wi-Fi, protected fully, and well, as fully as this can do it. You know, again, the internet's not 100% secure, and neither is VPN, but it's pretty secure. So there we go. That's the Netgear VPN router set up to, the Netgear stock router set up to run through private internet access VPN all the time. A few notes on this video and VPN in general. No one can guarantee you 100% privacy on the internet. It's just not possible. There's too many vulnerabilities, but this is a pretty good solution. So if you want to go with this solution, go for it. This Netgear router, if you set your Netgear router the way this one is set, more than likely it'll work. If you have some other brand, if you know where those settings are and you set those settings the same way, it should work for you as well. I may do more videos on VPN in the future as well. Also, one more note, and that is the faster CPU that your router has, the faster this your VPN will go. The VPN packets need to be processed by the router, so the quicker your router is, of course, the better your performance. That's just bottom line with anything, right? Faster your CPU is on your computer, the faster your computer is. Same with the router, okay? So that applies as well. That's it for my video on turning a Netgear router into a dedicated VPN router. If you liked this video and it helped you out in some way, do me a huge favor and click on the like button here in the bottom right hand corner and give me a big thumbs up. That helps my video, it helps my channel, and I greatly appreciate it. Also up here in the corner you'll see a picture of me. That is a subscription link. If you click on that picture, you'll be subscribed to my channel. As part of the process of subscribing to my channel, you'll see a bell icon. Click on the bell icon and you'll be notified every time I put up a new video. And in that way you can watch it at your own leisure. Once again, and like always, I want to thank you for watching and for your time.